My name is Fiona Terry.
And I'm Ioana.
And we have the pleasure of being the Women's Exchange CRG co-chairs. We are thrilled to welcome you all today to celebrate International Women's Day. International Women's Day has been celebrated around the world since 1911. This is a global day to recognize the social, economical, cultural, and political achievements of women. This day also marks a call to action. Equity isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have.
Today and every day, we need to celebrate women's achievements, raise awareness about discrimination, and take action to drive gender parity. People who push for equality-based solutions to social issues may believe in impartiality and that there should be no difference in services and policies. However, equity-based solutions take into account the diverse lived experiences of individuals and communities, adapting services and policies according to these differences. Equality is giving everyone a shoe. Equity is giving everyone a shoe that fits.
To the women of Marsh, we hope that you celebrate yourselves today and every day. To our male colleagues, we are grateful for your allyship. We can only drive change when we collectively work together. Equity is something we need to think about, know, value, and embrace. Equity means creating an inclusive world.
Each one of us can actively support and embrace equity within our own sphere of influence. We hope that you will enjoy this video, which highlights colleagues from across the country and at various stages in their careers.
My favorite female role model, I know it's a cliche response, I'm sorry, but I have to go with my mother. What a phenomenal woman. She was so kind, so positive. You would not have believed that this woman escaped the war with 3 kids. I can't even imagine babysitting 2 kids at once. And I believe my sister was 7 years old at the time. My brother was a toddler and my other brother was a baby. So yeah, I don't even want to think about that. But yeah, and she, in terms of leadership, she rose to the ranks from customs agent to head of customs a couple of decades later, and went on to become a diplomat by representing Burundi here in Canada. And she was just an incredible woman. She raised a number of her cousins and nieces, put them through school, and was also one of the first investors in a microfinance company that helps women with small loans to jumpstart their businesses. So for me, my mother was superwoman. Sorry. She did it all, and my favorite thing about her was that she was always so kind, so positive, so welcoming, so forgiving, and I just hope to one day be half of the woman that she was. And yeah, so I would say that my mother was my favorite female role model. Sorry, mom.
So what can men do to help achieve or promote equity? And I really think it's quite simple. It's you live the thinking and the positive reality surrounding International Women's Day and what we want out of it. We talk about it, we're transparent about it, and we do something about it. So when we think about gender equality and lack of bias and lack of stereotypes and lack of discrimination, it's important to just actually think about, well, what can I do to help that? What can I do to be a part of the solution? And whether it's making the society in general a better place, work a better place, or me functioning at home and men functioning at home in making that a better place. I think of my daughter and my wife and particularly my daughter as a grade 11 student coming into the world and coming into inevitably what will be workplace, maybe family life, but certainly work. And what would I want for her? I want her to be in a world and in a workplace that is supportive of women and supportive of her and supportive of her career, no differently than it's supportive of men's careers and men's needs and wants when it comes to life in the workplace. So I really think of it from that perspective, and I think men have an obligation, quite frankly, in a really positive way, to make that part of their own world and in promoting equity.
How do I balance my work and life? Some days I find it hard. Other days it can be a little bit easier. I do have a lot of crafts. I'm a crafter. So sometimes work interferes with my crafting. Sometimes crafting interferes with my work. But it's the fact that I have other passions that I look after, that I have. Crafting is one. And, I'm part of the Airdrie Pro Rodeo. I'm the marketing director there. So I have that passion of that lifestyle as well. So that keeps me nice and busy and everything. But I think the biggest thing to balance everything is that you need to separate work life from your personal life. Don't be afraid and never feel guilty about shutting down work. Turn off that computer, put that phone away, and have your work life. In your work life, once that's over with, do your life. Look after your passions, and whether it's being with friends and having dinner or taking your dog for a walk, whatever it is, you need to separate the two. And some days that's hard, and I get that. Some days it can be very hard to be able to separate the two, but the harder you work at it, the easier it gets to be able to separate them. So yeah, that's all I got.
Among the questions we were asked to think about, the one that really called to me was talking about women and confidence in the workplace, and that there's a crisis in confidence happening. So I think there are sort of four main things that help me in terms of my confidence in the workplace and have throughout the years. I think probably the most important one is blocking out that negative voice that we all have as young women and older women that says, you're too young, you're too old, you're not ready, you don't have all the qualifications, you're not good enough. Tune it out, mute it if it was on a Zoom call, because that is not truthful. And it holds so many of us back. The second thing is that I would say find other strong women, either in your team, in the wider Marsh community, or frankly outside, to be your sounding boards and your cheerleaders. We all need cheerleaders in this world. Thirdly, what I would say is, remember that if you are struggling with something in a meeting, or somebody says something and it doesn't make sense to you, if it doesn't make sense to you, it probably is not making sense, period, or at least it's not making sense to someone else in the room, so that you're actually not alone. And that helps give me the courage to speak up if I'm confused or unsure about something. And then finally, and it's actually something that I have used with my kids over the years, and it's equally helpful in the workplace, I think, for women, which is the idea of, if they're struggling with finding their voice or speaking up or being confident, what's the worst thing that could happen if you raise your hand and you get it wrong, right? Or you raise your hand and you say something that is maybe contrary to what is being said in a meeting. It's not the end of the world ever, frankly, and it often leads to more fruitful discussion. And practicing that, what's the worst that could happen? It's going to be okay at the end of the day, are sort of the lessons that I try to instill in my kids, because it helped me progress through my career, and own it. Those are my thoughts on that issue. I wish everybody a really happy International Women's Day. Thanks.
How do you balance your career, personal life, and passions? I think for me, what works well is kind of having a consistent routine. And don't get me wrong, I do fall off the wagon here and there, especially on the weekends. But lately I've been trying to consciously set aside some time to wake up early, have an early healthy breakfast before I log in or scramble to get my hands on my phone, even before I've opened my eyes. So I try to step away from the desk around 5, even if I have to check back in a little later, just to get some movement in during the evening, or just pursue a hobby. Sometimes it's a dance class or a workout class, or just to walk along the Stanley Park seawall when it's not raining. I think this and just the simplest of things, such as having your meals on time, staying hydrated, it's just become increasingly crucial, given that we went into the pandemic, started working remotely, and now that we've kind of come out of it, and we have this hybrid model, lines can sometimes get a little bit blurry, especially when you're working from home. So what can men do to help achieve or promote equity? I think ensuring that women have access to the same opportunities is a given. But I think being proactive cheerleaders and being aware and cognizant, it goes a long way. So being allies and being supportive of women who are taking on new initiatives, new projects, or stepping into a new role. I think the possibilities are endless on how you can support and cheer people on. Okay, please share an example of where you've seen shifts at work and outside of work in terms of equity. I think a big shift that I've observed, especially in the last few years, is that there has been a lot of awareness and a lot of dialogue surrounding this theme. So people are talking about equity in the workplace so very openly, so very openly. And there are more platforms for women to talk about their experiences and just share their opinions and be more vocal. So for me, as a woman of color, I personally have found inspiration in seeing other women take on positions of power and leadership across industries, across various jurisdictions. So the bottom line essentially is that representation matters, and it's so important because it's very uplifting.
Favorite female role model. I can't pick one. That's impossible. So I'm going to pick my Nona, grandma, my mom, my sister. These are all people I looked up to. They are the most hardworking people I've ever met in my life. Made so many sacrifices. Huge role models, huge inspirations. Beautiful people, beautiful hearts. They always put others before them. And also, of course, being Italian, make amazing food. So I always look up to that. Well, except that one time my sister tried to put mushrooms in my food, which, don't like at all. But other than that, I always look up to them. They're just fantastic people, very amazing. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for them too. We need more people like that. So I'm just very happy to have been raised by an amazing grandma, amazing mother, and also having an amazing sister too, which helped me become who I am today. So I look up to all of them. Can't really pick one. It's impossible to pick one, just because everyone has their own special traits, but once it works together, it all intertwines, and it helps shape you to who you are, and helps you become a better person. And also, with all the teachings and learnings, you want to help enhance and improve society in general. So I'd pick all three of them.
So what can men do to help achieve and promote equity in the workplace? Well, women make up half the population. They are your sisters, they are your mothers, they are your wives, your grandmothers, and so on. And the only thing a woman asks for is just the opportunity. And so when you find somebody who has an interest in the skills and the talent, just be inclusive. Invite them to meetings. Let them share in on listening. Let them participate in ideation. They have so much to bring to the table. But also, as well as a man in the workplace, you can also help to be our advocate. So whenever you hear inappropriate comments or have the opportunity to look at changing plans ahead of time, especially things like team building, who wants to go ice fishing? Just be mindful that there's others in the room, and how can we make sure that everybody's included regardless of what their gender is?
Who is my favorite female role model and why? Well, I would say Princess Leia. Okay, I appreciate that she's a fictional character, but she embodies everything that I think is absolutely wonderful and feminine. Not only is she strategic and she becomes a general at the later stage of her life, but she's kind and she's compassionate and she leads a rebellion of others to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So Princess Leia, she's probably my favorite female role model.
When I think of what man could do to embrace and to help achieving and to promote a women's equity is to first talk about it more, and secondly, be involved more. What I mean by that is when you see an event set up to embrace women equity, it's pretty rare that you see a lot of men. And for me, it's really disturbing. And I feel that if more men get involved, actually more men are going to want to be involved, and it can only create positive things. And when I think of a female role model that inspired me throughout my life, I cannot say someone else than my mother. I mean, she's always been there for me. She taught me everything I know and what I can do. And she's always been a strong leader. I mean, at her job, in her personal life, she has always had that leadership personality that inspired me achieve what I want to achieve in life.
In your opinion, why do we need more women in leadership? They have integrity, they are empathetic, they are methodical, they are passionate, they are trustworthy, they are great communicators, and they are very grateful and thankful.
It's interesting because we live in a time where there are more calls for gender equality, pay transparency, and closing the gender pay gap. And while we are making progress, there's much work to do, and that requires more women in leadership roles. Forbes magazine actually reports that of all Fortune 500 companies, only 8.8% of CEOs are women. Women in leadership bring a unique skill set. They navigate the often challenging journey to the top with empathy and compassion. We naturally bring an adaptive co-management approach to leadership, meaning that we bring people together, we build bridges, and we establish a sense of community in the workplace. We bring new and fresh perspective and often view competitive business through a different lens, which often results in a more successful outcome and profitability. We are mothers and caregivers, which gives us the ability to handle challenging deadlines or emergencies with grace and patience. But most importantly, we are role models and mentors. We communicate. We are strategic, focused, and loyal because we have to be.
Who is my favorite female role model and why? I've been very fortunate throughout my career to have a number of strong, intelligent, strategic female leaders who have had a big impact on me. And then as I've developed my leadership style, I've really taken a lot away from them. And there's been a number that I've had over the years, and I continue to look up to them and seek their advice in particular situations. And they continue to be role models for me today. What can men do to help achieve or promote equity? I think that's a really important question. Men can be strong allies for women or for promoting equity within teams or particular situations. But men need to live up to that, and they need to speak up, and they need to make sure that, they are making sure that everybody has a voice and that everybody's opinion is heard, respected, and thought of, and that, it's always top of mind that, everyone in a particular team does feel like they are valued and does feel like they, have enough confidence to speak up, and that their comments will be taken seriously. And I think it's just about being top of mind all the time in every situation. We need to continue to promote equity, but we can't promote it if we're not constantly thinking about it. And I think that's the key. In my opinion, why do we need more women in leadership? I think we need more women in leadership because of the approach that they bring. I think it doesn't make any sense to have a bunch of people in a room trying to solve a problem who all potentially come to the same conclusion or think about things the same way. The world is changing at a fast pace, and problems are continually becoming more complex, over time. So, we need people with diverse experience, background, different approaches to challenge each other and to come up with solutions and strategies to continue to propel us forward. And women play a massive role in that. And so we need to make sure that we're continuously, growing, improving, and making sure that women are having, every single opportunity at a leadership position that a man is. And again, it goes back to promoting equity.
A study shows that nearly half the female workforce are not feeling confident at work, strongly related to the lack of confidence in women are feeling less valued at work and feeling less like they belong at work. Can you share with us how you built up your confidence and resiliency at work? So I think it's really important to find yourself a female mentor or someone who could be a really strong advisor for you. There is kind of this thought that if you're good at something, it should be easy, when in actuality, it's quite the opposite. Talent and effort go hand in hand and are both vital for success. I also believe that, being able to speak with someone about, your insecurities or how you're feeling, and them to point out those things that are so great about yourself and are so strong about yourself that you wouldn't necessarily see when you were feeling kind of that self-doubt. So that's why having a strong mentor or an advisor is extremely important. Also, I feel like we need to foster a culture of, it's okay to fail. Failure is actually quite critical to anyone's success. So I think that is a really important thing for people to not only not be afraid of failure, but to welcome it. One of the things that I was told when I first started my career at Marsh is that, there's a fix for everything. So if you do fail, that's okay. The information and the lessons that you learn from that failure and, indeed in fixing it, follow you throughout your entire career.
I want to start off by kind of talking about who has inspired me to be a leader. And I kind of want to start off with, the cliche answer is actually my mom. She has been my role model since I was born. She is a single mother who worked her butt off to put me and my brothers through sports and university and everything like that. My mom, throughout her entire life, worked her butt off day in and day out to do everything she could to help out her family and make sure her kids were taken care of. My mom has actually worked for Costco Wholesale for I believe it's 33 years, and has literally started off from the bottom and worked her way up, worked her way up to the point of the front end manager. And she actually did that for 10, 15 years. So a lot of my leadership qualities that I'd like to think I have and use in my day-to-day life, I've learned from my mom. She is a strong-willed woman and continually pushes herself, grows, has, continued to learn throughout her years, working at the same job, learning all the new things that have come in, and continually led her teams, and continually grown, and has helped out many of Costco's to grow as I mean, gosh, everyone knows how big they are, but she continues to push forward and continues to work there today, and still continues to lead a team and train up the next people that are coming along and help them move into leadership positions. And yeah, it's always been amazing for me to see.
There has been a lot of changes and improvements for women in the workplace. What further changes would I like most to see? I want women to have a fair chance at being considered for roles, especially in management and leadership positions. And when they get these roles, I want them to not have to fear that they're not being compensated fairly and equally. The fact that there is a gender pay gap in 2023 absolutely floors me. Women not only need to be in these positions, but need to be compensated fairly. Who is my favorite female role model and why? Lady Gaga is my favorite female role model. She is so unapologetically herself. I love how she is a voice for women and is such a loud and proud feminist. Not only is she a voice for women, but she's also a voice for the LGBTQ community, as well as the underdogs. I feel that she radiates equality in all that she does. She's made countless speeches and has many songs with her message for equality. In my opinion, why do we need more women in leadership? As Lizzo said, it's about damn time. With women in leadership, we will gain a different perspective. With men having the majority of the leadership roles, you'll get a similar perspective. And with more women in these roles, we'll gain a women's perspective and a women's point of view. And that can only make for a more inclusive workplace. I've had many great managers in my career, and I feel that I communicate best with women. I feel that women are more able to relate to a wider range of people and have an emotional range to be able to handle the different situations that a great leader is going to have to encounter. Thank you so much.
Who is your favorite female role model and why? I have many favorite female role models that work at Marsh Canada and outside of the organization. I work with many females, but I have two females that really stick out in my mind that I directly work for. And they are the office leaders for the Marsh London and Ottawa offices, Mary Lynch and Shannon Ballou. I'm not being biased because I work for them, but they both have the qualities and values that I admire so much, and I strive to be more like them every day. I work with many leaders, but for some reason, when working with female leaders, they make you feel like your work is more valued and appreciated. When leaders value and appreciate their colleagues, you get great collaboration and output. Please don't get me wrong. There are many great men leaders in this organization and in others that have the same qualities, but for those qualities in men, they are sometimes harder to find. Please share an example where you have seen a shift at work or outside of work in terms of equality. I have been with Marsh Canada for almost 30 years, and I can say that there were more men than women in leadership roles at Marsh. The insurance industry was more male dominant, and it's nice to see the shift in this culture. Women in insurance can bring a very different perspective in this industry. I have never seen so many women leaders at the helm of the ship, and it makes me proud to be a female in this industry.
The one journey that I want to share with everybody is a couple of years ago, I came back from mat leave, and there was no hybrid workplace model at that time. And as I came in, I actually got a promotion. I stepped into a team leader role from the role that I was in, and I moved team. I went into to talk to my manager, who I reported into, saying that I don't think I can do this role. You know, it's the hours, coming in, going in, taking the train, missing the train, the daycare, the extra money that I'm having to dole out. I don't think it's worth it personally, and it's taking a toll on my mental health as well professionally. And he said, okay, he said, think about it. Do you really want to, to quit? You know, you've got a better thing going here. Look at the opportunities you have. And he said, think about some possible solution yourself. Like, think about something. And he said, I'll also think about things for you. He said, let's talk in a couple of days. So we met a couple of days later, and my answer was still the same, that no, I don't think I could do this. And, he had at that time, what he'd done was that found the GO train times for me of, the trains that I could take that would get me in, and the trains that I could take back that would help me reach home a little earlier for daycare. He'd also found a couple of times early on Friday and on Wednesdays, I would say, where he said, leave early, leave at 2:30. And he's like, don't worry about working after that. I trust you. I know you do your quotas. So what I'd like you to do is take this route, and you'd be home earlier. And he's like, see if this makes a difference. And he's like, no, he said, I don't want you to working part-time. I don't want you to quit. It's going to have an impact on your lifestyle. So let's see how this goes for a couple of weeks. And if you think that you can adjust with these hours and with these times, he said, then we're moving in the right direction. And he said, what you need to do is, the next couple of years are hard for you. You've got a young family, but you'll be able to do it. So just the confidence with which he actually made the effort to plan this for me was the turning point in my life as to like, okay, I don't need to quit. And that mentality has stayed with me from then to now.
When I joined Marsh, I was new to the insurance industry. I was new to the workforce in general, and thus I was not overly confident in myself or my abilities. Certainly not my insurance knowledge at that time. But throughout the past 4 years, there have been 2 strategies that have helped me boost my confidence. The first one is building a strong network of colleagues, advocates, mentors, and of course, friends throughout Marsh, not only in the Toronto office, but across Canada, across North America, and even with some of the international Marsh offices with whom I get to work that have really been there to champion me, support me, encourage me when I might be doubting myself, or I might be feeling stuck, or I might have a question and not know what the next step is looking like. So having that network of folks who have been there since day one over time has really helped me boost my confidence. The second thing, interestingly enough, has little to do with my actual work itself, and that has been fiercely prioritizing the things I like to do outside of work, whether that is going to a fitness class, spending time with my friends, seeing my family, resting, of course, which is very important, prioritizing my well-being and my health, and having fun outside of my job at Marsh has helped me become a lot more confident as a person, and therefore as a professional when I am at work. So between those 2 strategies, I have seen my confidence grow in leaps and bounds throughout the past few years. And I hope that this continues. And of course, wish the same for all of the other folks at Marsh, and especially the women who might be struggling with their self-confidence.
In order to strive to achieve work-life balance in my career, my personal life, and my passions, I had to ask for help. I had to go to my mentors or go to family and friends and ask about their experiences and what worked for them, because achieving work-life balance is really hard to do, especially when you have a demanding career, when you have lots of family and friends, and when you find it hard to set aside time for yourself. So what I do is I communicate my boundaries to my workplace, to my friends, to my family. And I always set aside time for self-care, because I have to focus on feeling my best in order to be my best. And that is my mentality I take into every day. I try to give my best to work and to my friends and to my family. However, I'm not hard on myself if I can't give 100% to all areas of my life.
During my entire career at Marsh, I've always been led by women. When I first came to this company, my team leader was the first woman I had ever been led by, and she was doing it with such confidence and by herself, something that not any other department heads were doing. It was the first time in all my working years I was able to confidently approach my manager, knowing there was a chance she could understand where I was coming from, being female with a family and making the change into working from home. After the pandemic, the stresses of trying to balance my career, my personal life, and my passions became really hard. And as we all know, post-COVID, the work from home model became a way of life. And with that, it was easy for work to start melting into your home life. The potential for us to almost lose ourselves post-pandemic was so real. So to combat that, I asked my manager how she deals with it. She gave me some tips, the first and biggest one being boundaries. She told me at the end of her shift, that's the end. People have children, working from home is hard enough. So to extend your time when the shift is finished not only stresses you out, your family out, it's also not fair to take more time from them in general. She told me to shut my work phone off, close the laptop, close the door to the office if I needed to. It's easy to forget about your personal time and the things that you enjoy the most. So make sure I block off time during lunch, get out, go for the walks that I so love, and detach a little bit. Marsh was the first company to open my eyes to see the strength of a woman. My first team leader, like I said, was female, her manager, another woman, and again above her, a woman at the top of the chain. It was so inspiring to see just how strong and powerful they were and how much respect they demanded when they walk into a room. Their energy and inspiration that they bring to the office was just unmatched.
I think that the greatest inspiration for becoming a leader has been my daughters, because I want them to know that there are no holds barred in their life. If they are passionate about something, if they are willing to work hard and put the time in to learn, to educate, to share with others, that you can achieve something that you're proud of. And it feeds directly into my next question about work-life balance, because there is no balance. It's one of those questions I always saw come up in interviews with famous people or successful women. How do you manage it? And I always thought it was just so rude because nobody ever asked men, which is almost hilarious. But now I want to ask the question, like, oh, you're doing well, you're killing it in your job, and you're really achieving your dreams. So how are you balancing that? And from my own experience, it doesn't happen. So it was a friend of mine shared a video, and there's a woman who created such fun shows as Grey's Anatomy and How to Get Away with Murder. And she's talking about the balance in her own life. And the truth is, the real balancing act is when I'm doing really, really well in one area of my life, I might be completely failing in the other. So I might be in Toronto with a new client and just smashing all of their meetings and interviews, and but I'm missing out on something important for my children, and vice versa. If I'm dedicating myself to my children, I might not be able to make a meeting. Maybe my kid's sick, and so I have to cancel them that day. But what's important is that I'm showing my children that, you have to make decisions, the best decisions that you can in the moment. They're not going to be perfect because you're not perfect, and that's okay. So I know we keep striving towards this work-life balance, but I think that we need to just kind of cut ourselves some slack, because when everything is balanced, case in point, maybe nothing is. So what you have to do is just make the best decision you can in the moment, get through, let everybody know what's actually important, right? Yeah. And you'll find success.
Hi, my name is Tracy Anichak, and I'm a FinPro client advisor based in Toronto.
And my name is Stephanie Kuntz, and I'm a client executive and surety specialist with the National Construction and Surety Practice, and I am based out of the Calgary office.
Both Stephanie and I are proud members of the Women's Exchange Colleague Resource Group, and we're honored to put together this video with contributions from colleagues across the country.
Yes, many thanks to each colleague who contributed to the video. We so greatly appreciate and value the time and effort that you have each put into sharing your thoughts and ideas, not to mention the courage to share on a national platform. So many thanks again to all who contributed and to everyone gathered here to celebrate International Women's Day together.